Color and other sensory characteristics are some of the ways we can help make documents clearer for everyone. However, it's essential that we not rely on the ability of everyone to perceive color and perceive color in a typical way. And we can get all the benefits without trade-offs. I'm David Berman, and today I'm demonstrating for you how to use color and other sensory characteristics in your office files in a way that's accessible for everyone. I'll describe as I go so you can learn what you need just by listening or reading the captions, or you can watch. Now, using color and other sensory characteristics is essential to help make your documents conform to accessibility standards such as WCAG 2.0 and WCAG 2.1. And I'm showing a sample file today that's not accessible in many ways, and I'm showing it to you in the latest version of Word 365 for Windows. However, the techniques and ideas I'll be sharing today work just as well in every version of Word, PowerPoint, Excel, on Windows and Mac OS. So, my sample document, staff report on 123 Main Street, I'm wondering, have I used color effectively in a way that's going to work for everyone? And if I scroll through the document, I can see that, I'm noticing some of my headings are maybe a little light in color. I'm going to pull up the accessibility checker. I'm selecting the review tab and selecting check accessibility, and up comes the accessibility pane. And indeed, in that pane, there's a warning. The warning is worded hard to read text contrast. 18 means there's 18 places where Microsoft Word thinks there are color contrast issues. I'm going to expand that and see the 18. And oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. Okay, so, and just be alert that although the accessibility checker can find some color issues, it can't be trusted to find them all, nor to judge them perfectly. So we're going to use an even better tool to make sure that our colors are in appropriately contrasting. So let me select the first one on the list, major redevelopment. And when I select that, it's providing a recommended action, but it takes me right to this heading, major redevelopment and restoration tax incentive grant. And I can see, even based on my vision, which isn't not entirely typical, that looks quite a light color. There's probably not enough contrast there. Now, the thing is, if we need a darker color, how dark is dark enough? Certainly, I could just change it to black on white and be absolutely sure that that's sufficient. So for example, right now I'll highlight the headline. I'm going to go to back to the home ribbon and change the color of this font to be black. And in the accessibility checker, our count of the number of warnings just went from 18 to 17, indicating to me that I probably succeeded by making it black on white. However, we like to use color to help make these headings unique or distinctive. So I'm going to undo, Control Z. I'm back to the color that's too light, and I'm going to bring in another tool that we often use. Now, there's a lot of contrast tools out there. This is my favorite. It's called the Color Contrast Analyzer. It's available for Windows and Mac OS, and it's a free download. You just Google for Color Contrast Analyzer. And then you launch this program. And why we like it so much is that it can be hovered over any program. So I can hover it over PowerPoint, Word, Excel, a web page, a PDF. And how it works is this. The Color Contrast Analyzer has an eyedropper for the foreground color and an eyedropper for the background color. So first I go to the foreground color eyedropper, and then I can hover it over the color. So for someone who can see, this is a powerful tool. If you're non-visual, you can instead inspect the color number and look it up in a table. So there are ways for someone who can't see the screen to also discover the color the colors to see if they're sufficient. So in this case, using the color contrast analyzer, I'm selecting a sample of this letter, and it's showing me that the foreground color, and it's giving me the hex code of that color in case I wanted to know it. But it's showing me the contrast between the foreground color and the background color, which is already defaults to white, but just to be formal, I'm going to go select white, so you'd know how to use it if your background color wasn't white. And it's showing me the contrast between the foreground color and the background color is 2.2 to 1. Now 2.2 to 1 is showing as a fail of regular text as well as a fail of large text for the WCAG success criterion called 1.4.3 contrast minimum AA, which is a long-winded way of saying that this is not enough contrast to pass WCAG 2.0 AA nor 2.1 AA. The rule is the same in 2.1 and 2.0. And there's a more lenient rule for large text. What we need is a contrast ratio of at least 4.5 to 1 for regular text. And then for headlines that are at least 14-point bold or 18-point bold or not bold, and this is a 14-point bold headline, the contrast ratio is more lenient. It allows us to have just 3 to 1. But this contrast ratio is 2.2 to 1, which fails whether it's regular text or large text. And so we're going to improve that now. So let's say I decided to choose a darker version of this hue. So I'm going to go back to the font color menu here, and I'm going to choose, let's say, a deeper color. Maybe not that deep. Maybe this deep. And now if I do the same technique of taking the eyedropper and checking it, and great, I'm now showing, I'm excited because I see the contrast ratio is 6.5 to 1 now according to the color contrast analyzer. So I now have just as much distinction as I had. I'm in the color palette of the branding manual of the town of Trillium, and everyone who is sighted, people with various differences in how they see color, is going to be able to distinguish this color from the background. Now, we said there were 17 instances of this, so what about the other 17? Well, conveniently, because we've set up our file with styled headings, as per another one of our videos, I don't have to go through and fix every one of these one by one. What I can do is fix the style, because if I scroll down, I'm seeing that over and over again, this color problem is in every one of my heading 3s. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the style pane and find the style for heading 3, modify it, and change the color. Choose the font subwindow. Here's where the color is for heading 3, which is too light. And now I'm going to change it to the darker hue, select OK, and now the style has a darker color, and I select OK, and now all of the headings throughout the document now get the better color, and now my warnings are all gone. Oh no, there's one left. Let's check out which one that is. So there's a paragraph somewhere called the Town of Trillium Zoning. Aha, here it is. So before we were looking at a heading which had insufficient color contrast, and here's a chunk of text. Looks like someone wanted to emphasize it, have it really stand out, but it's such a low contrast version of yellow that it's not working. It's way too light. So we can select any color we'd like, and in this case it's just this one special case. So rather than going to a style, I'm going to change it to black. And now we can see the accessibility checker is no longer reporting any errors of that nature. There's another error here. We'll talk about tables another time, but all of our color contrast issues are resolved. So there it is. Now, I also wanted to mention other sensory characteristics and how we use color. So, for example, on this page, there's a table, and there's instructions here. It says, items that... This is the lot provisions table. And there's a note here. Items that provided is not applicable are marked in red. Okay. So the challenge there is, if I can't distinguish red from black, how will I know which items for which provided are not applicable? And indeed, my understanding is the last two rows in this table are using some red type. But some people can't tell the difference between red type and black type because they see color differently. Others can't see the difference because they can't see at all. Either case, we're excluding some of our audience members in knowing which items are provided. So this is an editorial issue. And so there's all kinds of ways we could solve it. One way would be that I could, in the provided column, which is the last column in this table, I'm going to add a comment saying, no, not applicable here and not applicable here. Now, if I want to leave these items red, that's okay, because it's okay to use color to denote things as long as it's not the only way we're denoting it. So we can use the color as a secondary way of emphasizing the fact that items that provided it's not applicable are somehow emphasized. But I think the elegant way I go about then taking advantage of color as well is I would change this sentence to say something like, some items provided is not applicable. And I'll leave that message in red. Oops. I'll leave that message in red so that people who can perceive red have an extra clue that things that look like this, that are red, they can also associate the idea. I'm going to change the way I emphasized the type here in the rightmost column. What I did before was I gave it a red background, but I think it's a little too much maybe. So now we're going to instead use the styling of red type on black. And I'm going to, therefore, the message is going to look just like the comment about some items provided are not applicable. And there's my design idea. Now, as I said before, there's so many ways you could do this, but the key is that even if someone can't perceive color at all of the information is now provided, because in text, in the provided column, the items that for which provided is not applicable are written out, not applicable, not applicable. Now, I'm also using red as a way to emphasize that for people who can perceive red as a secondary item, and so there is our cue about the red without even mentioning redness, and there we are. So that's a way where we don't rely solely on color to denote something. Let me show you one last example of how sensory characteristics work, because of course color is only one of many sensory characteristics. I'm going to go down to I'm scrolling down to the part of this document where one provides signatures. So there's a page, the very last page of this document, supposed to be signed by some people to make it official. So there's some instructions here in the section called signatures, and the instructions read as follows. Community planner must sign above the solid line, the left signature line. I guess that was supposed to be on the left signature line. And then there's another comment, another instruction. Director of planning must sign above the solid line on the right signature line. So for a typical audience member, that may be very clear. But if you can't distinguish left from right, either because that confuses you cognitively or because you can't see at all, and so the idea of left versus right is not relevant in this layout, these instructions aren't going to work for you. So here's another case of being guilty of relying on sensory characteristics. The solid line idea as well. Maybe if I can't see this, how am I supposed to know which lines are solid and which lines are not solid, and where's even the line? Now, the ultimate best solution here would be to insert digital signatures into our document, but I think, well, there's so many ways we could go about solving this. So I think that the way I would solve this, actually, I'm not even sure if I want the left-right thing. I think it'd be maybe just nice to have the signatures above and below each other. And so maybe we have to say the community planner must sign on the line labeled community planner. There, that's a good solution. And now we'll just make the line labeled community planner signature. That would be a good way of doing it. Thinking also they probably are supposed to fill in their name here. So maybe there's a field, and we could put in proper fields as well. Again, that's for another lesson. How to put fillable fields into a Word document. But signature, there we go. So now we have a place for a director of planning signature, a place for a community planner signature. And in fact, if I really wanted to do this really sweet, I go to the help. I love the help in Word. So I'm remembering, well, how do I add a signature line? So I can say add a signature line. And there it is, add a signature line. And I can actually put in a proper digital signature field just like that. And do it again for the other one, just like that. And now I have a place that people who can see and use a pen can still write a they can still use a pen to what we call wet fill, pen or pencil to wet fill it on this place where there's a picture of an X and a line, but also if you couldn't see it all, your screen reader would now announce the ability to fill in a digital signature, and I could even have someone choose to sign it formally using a digital signature that's certified and notarized and all that. But all that to say, whether we're talking about color or we're talking about other sensory characteristics, what we've learned today is how we can make sure that our colors are all high enough contrast so people who see color differently than is typical can all perceive the difference in a high enough contrast. We've also seen how we can use color in a way that works for everyone, whether they can see or not. And we can think about other instructions that wrongly rely entirely on sensory characteristics can be reworded in such a way that everyone can use them.